right, welcome back. I'm joined today again by Lawrence Anton, co-founder of Antinatalism International. Yeah, co-founder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in previous conversations and interviews, and I think at one of the launches, you were quoted as saying you were an EFIList. And I wanted to follow up with that because in Discord, you said there's been updates. So I want to ask you about that. Um, yeah, are you an EFIList?
Yeah, I would no longer use the term to identify myself. Like when I first sort of engaged with the antinatalist community, I just understood, I didn't realize that there was a perception that some people had that antinatalism was just human centric. And so I was of the understanding that EFILism was simply just the sentiocentric version. And so naturally I just, adopted the label. I didn't really like wear it on my sleeve or anything, but if people asked me, I would happily say it. And like I did, like there were recordings of me saying it. But yeah, since then I've just sort of like become a lot more unsure of what it means, because it seems like every person I ask has a different definition or understanding of well, I mean, with any philosophy, different people are going to understand it in slightly different ways, but at least with EFILism, it's like whenever I have communicated it as just being sentiocentric antinatalism, I've always had people saying, well, no, there are more bells and whistles and stuff attached to it. And so like, I mean, to be honest, I don't really like the word that much. Some people really like it. To be honest, I think it's a bit of a shit word. Like I just don't think it looks good or sounds good or anything like that. But I mean, that's by the by, it's just a term. Oh, my train of thought is completely gone.
About the definition.
Yeah. No, it's just completely, I was gonna, you can cut this bit out if you want.
No, I put these unedited, so
Oh,
you're
shit,
screwed.
now I've got to really think.
That's okay. Let's talk about like so when you were introduced to the
Oh,
term.
sorry,
Oh,
I've got
sorry.
it, I've got it, I've
Okay,
got it.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, so every time I would sort of converse with someone about EFILism, it would always seem like there were more bells and whistles attached to it than I thought, than just being sentiocentric antinatalism. And so it's like, I'm not attached to the term in any way. Like, I don't care about the term. It's the ideas that are like, is what that matters. And so I just really didn't feel like I needed to defend the term in any way and be like, no, this is what it means. I was just like, oh, fuck it. Okay, I'll just lose the term. I don't care about the term. Like, I still have the same views. I just don't use the term anymore because it just seems like it's very polluted. And to be honest, like, it just, people tell me it means different things. So, I've just abandoned it because it's like, whatever, it adds nothing for me, it's just a superficial term.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a problem for them, is being clear about the term. And because this seems to be a common theme when this topic comes up. And hopefully I plan on talking to some EFILists in the future to hash that out. I feel like there's common themes and common ideas. For you, if you say you're not an EFIList, and I ask you, so my follow-up question would be, why not? Why not? Like, what are the ideas that you disagree with?
One thing I wanted to say before that, just to I don't really know what it would be. It's just maybe a bit of an additional, a bit more context. Is like, it's not just EFILism that I've done this with. Like, I've done the same with veganism. Like, my ideas on animal rights and my understanding of it and my, subscription to it or support to it is exactly the same. I just don't use the term vegan because I think it's become so polluted, and often it just causes more problems than it's worth. So like occasionally I still use the term, like if I'm in the shop and something is labeled as vegan, obviously I'm going to say vegan. I'm not going to go like, oh, can I have the thing that has no animal products in? Like, no, it's just like, that's so long-winded. But to like use it as like an identity label or whatever, I no longer call myself vegan either, as well as EFIList. Like I still call myself antinatalist, because I don't like, at least from what I've seen in my experience, it hasn't become as like tainted or anything.
Yeah.
But like down the line, if the term antinatalist becomes really sort of tainted in the mainstream of society, or just like in general in my interactions I have with people, I would have no issue with like not using the term antinatalism to describe myself, or antinatalist to describe myself. Like my beliefs will still be the same. Like I'll still think it's unethical to create new sentient life. It's just like you don't need this term to get in the way, because like so often language and like labels just like get in the way of conversation. Like how many times have you been having a productive conversation, for example, and then the term vegan comes up and it goes to absolute shit, just
Absolutely.
because of a word, not because of the ideas, just because of a word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to provide that a bit more context. Sorry, what was your question you asked?
Okay, so I'm not really well structured in this one, but okay, so I wanted to touch on the ideas that you disagree with, but then also maybe go back to the definition. But yeah, let's go to like the ideas. What are the ideas that you agree or disagree with?
Well, one of the issues is I don't exactly know what the ideas are, because I get different answers from different people.
So let me read from the Antinatalism International website the definition of EFILism, and maybe this would help us. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go.
Okay, so it says EFILism, life spelled backwards, is a strictly sentiocentric form of antinatalism. First coined by the YouTuber-based philosopher Inventim in late 2010. Though it's certainly true that human beings not only cause but feel a great deal of suffering, EFILism is the belief that the real problems here on planet Earth are DNA, nature, and sentience. That all life, both human and animal, are the products of unintelligent design at the cost of immense, unacceptable, and unnecessary suffering. While humanity should indeed stop procreating and go extinct, it also has a responsibility as the only species with any hope of doing so to prevent the further suffering of the rest of sentient life by finding means of breaking their cycle of sentience first before we are gone. And then it's the link to the website, EFILism.com. What do you think of that?
Okay, cool. There was one I need it in front of me.
Yeah, bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just bring it up, because there was a couple of things I was going to say, but I just need it in front. But well, so the first thing I'll say is so most of that I would say I align with, but there was a couple of certain things that I wanted to say. Like,
well, let's start off with the stuff that you align with, because some of that is my yeah, I'd like to know.
Okay, cool. I've got it. Let me. I know this is going to be boring for people, but let me just read it over.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So EFILism, life spelled backwards, is strictly a sentiocentric form of antinatalism. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Like, how I view antinatalism as being sentiocentric.
It is. Benatarian antinatalism is sentiocentric, though it depends. Like, it could be a Cabreran type of antinatalism. It could be, I think there could be different forms of antinatalism that would probably say it's not sentiocentric, but Benatar has been clear that it is sentiocentric in his argumentation. So his arguments for antinatalism is sentiocentric. So the question is, what's the difference between Benatarian sentiocentric antinatalism and EFIList sentiocentric antinatalism? I do think there's a difference, but since I'm not an EFIList, I can't really answer that question. I feel like I'd have to talk to someone about that. I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that the difference is Benatar talks about moral agents not creating moral patience of other sentient creatures. And so that the issue would be us creating more sentient life. And I think the EFIList take is that we're responsible for intervening into wildlife and stuff like that. I don't know by what method. There's some talk about sterilization, some talk about euthanasia in an end game scenario. That's what I've heard sometimes. And I think this is what is a possible separation. So like when people say Benatarian, I mean, nobody really says this, Benatarian sentiocentric antinatalism. I'm starting to use that term. And then sentiocentric antinatalism in an EFIList framework. I think there is a difference. Yeah, I think that I'm personally abandoning the term sentiocentric antinatalism because people think that implies potentially sterilizing animals in the wild and maybe euthanizing. It's kind of unclear when you say sentiocentric antinatalism. Well, what do you mean by that? For me, it means about moral agents creating like breeding. Like I would be against breeding other animals.
Someone
that's what I
making the
mean.
decision to do it rather than it just being based off some sort of amoral process.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say I agree with you. I think, at least in the way I understand it, antinatalism is more concerned with, the sort of the intentional creation of new life. It's a critique of an action someone is taking. I don't think you can critique a gazelle for reproducing. Like you can understand that it's a harm for the baby gazelle that's coming into existence, but you can't really critique the gazelle themselves for procreating because they know not what they do. It would be like blaming a baby who accidentally picks up a handgun and shoots their parent. Like obviously it's an awful thing to have happened, but you can't critique or blame the baby. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, that's a
So
good point, and I think that's another point of like confusion that could possibly arise is when you say you're sentiocentric antinatalist, are you trying to say that the other animals are unethical? No, I'm not saying that they're unethical, but I'm saying that their creation is definitely a harm to them, and that's from a Benatarian framework. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. So I think this is what you were saying, and I would agree with it, is that when it comes to antinatalism, it is focused on the sort of it's a recognition that the creation of any sentient life is a harm, but it's more of a focus on a critique of the agents that actually purposefully do it.
Yeah.
I then think it's a separate thing, although I think it's something that we should also do personally. But I do think it's a separate thing to then have a concern for non-moral agents, so like wild animals. So first, domesticate animals, the ones that we create, obviously definitely that is definitely something of our concern. Like we have brought that about and we should definitely address that. With wild animals, it is something not of our creation, or at least for the most part. Like we sort of breed some wild animals and then release them, but for the most part, wild animal suffering is not of our own creation. But I do think it is something that we should be concerned about. Like, am I someone that thinks we should just go around and scour the is that the right term? Scour the earth and just try and rid everywhere of sentient life by any means possible? No, I think we should recognize that there are a lot of other sentient beings out there apart from humans, and we should have great concern for them, and we should help them out as much as possible where we can in a very considered way, because there is a very large precedent in history for humans going around trying to do a good thing and completely fucking it up. So we definitely may be in that situation with wild animals. It may end up being a Pandora's box that we can't close, and that's very unfortunate. But I do think, and I talk about this with Les in the conversation you hosted on this channel, Mark. I do think we should have great concern for wild animals, and try and help alleviate their plight as much as we can, but
Yeah,
in a
sorry, go ahead.
very I was just going to say, in a very considered way. And the only added sort of caveat or whatever I would add to that is, I don't think we're in a position now to do it in a significant way. Like, we can sort of play around at the margins and try and help some wild animals, but I think our technology and understanding of wild ecosystems and the individuals in them needs to be a lot more advanced.
Yeah. And so when I look at I think an EFIList can take a lot of that into their school of thought, but also I think near the end where it says it also has a responsibility as the only species with the hope of doing so to prevent further suffering for the rest of the sentient life. If you stop there before breaking the cycle part, I think that goes into interventionalism in a way. But then it says breaking the cycle of sentience. So I think this is like, because there are already groups concerned about wild animal suffering, and I don't think that we have a clear solution about what we can do about wild animal suffering, but that people are working on that cause. And I think that some interventions can be ethical, but it needs to be considered, as you said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right on that. I also want to point out, because when I talked to Les recently, he thought, because we were talking about sentiocentric antinatalism, we were talking about concern of wild animals, that we were EFILists. And no, I'm not an EFIList. I just believe that there are other, like when I was involved in the effective altruism community, they were concerned about wild animal suffering too. So, I mean, you could talk about that. And the Bennettarian stuff includes sentiocentric antinatalism. So there was an unfortunate misattribution there. And it kind of confirms some of my hesitancy about, people getting confused about, what is your position and what label do you use? And I honestly think that if there was some useful way of not using labels, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't know if that's possible. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. You can continue.
Yeah, so and it first coined by the YouTube-based philosopher Emendem in late 2010. Though it's certainly true that human beings not only cause but feel a great deal of suffering, EFILism is the belief that the real problems here on planet Earth are DNA, nature, and sentience. I think one thing I would just add as a bit of nuance there is in like my understanding is I don't know how to word this really carefully. I'm not very good at wording things really carefully. So I'm just going to say what I'm saying and hope people just interpret it as charitably as possible. So, well, the second word, nature, I mean, nature is just a very sort of like vacuous term generally. So I'm just going to throw that one aside because like it doesn't really mean anything. But DNA and sentience. So DNA and sentience, I can definitely think, I can definitely see why someone would say they are the problems in and of themselves. Definitely. I think those are definitely parts of the problem. But the key problem that I have is not DNA or sentience. It is the creation of new sentience. Now that happens via an already sentient being, and DNA is involved as well because it wants to reproduce. But the issue itself is just creating new sentience. And again, I can't remember where I said it, but I think it was in my discussion with that vegan lawyer about not necessarily being pro-extinction. So like, yeah, I guess the way I can explain what I mean with DNA and sentience is by applying it to the same example that I gave with being antinatalist, but not necessarily pro-extinction. So let's say you have a final generation, it will be composed of sentient beings with DNA, but it's completely fine for that last generation to exist you know, they can go around living their lives. If they come up with some technology to become immortal, fine, have at it, do what you want. You know, I mean, I don't know if I would advise being immortal, but it's up to you. Like, secure, make sure you've got a way to opt out as well. But if you want to be immortal, like, fuck it, it's your life, I don't care what you do. The issue I have is when they start messing around with others. You know, and obviously the key way is by creating new life. So I mean, I don't know if I've said it in the most nuanced way, but maybe and I mean, maybe my thinking is a bit misplaced on this. I don't know what you think, Mark.
No, no,
But
no. We agreed on this. I actually, I
yeah,
have a clip of you talking about being like you're not necessarily an extinctionist, and me agreeing with you. I don't know if you saw that, but
yeah. Well, but the thing I wanted to know whether you agree on or not is, the thing is, like, I'm not sure if DNA and sentience themselves are the things that are the problem in and of themselves. It is what they can result in, which I think is the problem, which is the creation of new sentient life. But DNA and sentience just existing, i.e., in the form of a new, of a final generation, I like, I don't think we then need to, you know, point to the large generation and go like, DNA is poison or sentience is poison. It's like, who gives a shit? As long as they're not creating new people, just let them live their lives, and then they'll, you know, die out, and then whatever.
Yeah, I can see that.
um I definitely understand why people you know, really focus in on DNA and sentience, because they are the two big causes of new sentient life being created. You
Yeah,
know, obviously because it's created by other sentient agents, um and you know, because they have DNA that makes them want to reproduce. But like, so those two things combined, like, obviously end up causing the problem.
yeah.
But I
It's
don't
like
think
going down to the root cause. What is the root cause of it? And I think that's the critique.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I would say, yeah, DNA and sentience, at least at the moment, are the root cause. You know, AI is a whole nother thing. Um, but at the moment, well, so I mean, with AI, it would still be sentience. But, you know, at the moment, I guess DNA combined with sentience is the, you know, the core issue, or is the root cause. But the core issue is the creation of new sentient life. And you know, if you stop the creation of new sentient life, then I don't think sentience itself and DNA become an issue.
gotcha. Okay.
I mean, maybe I've just like explained that really badly and someone's going to be very uncharitable. I don't know.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No matter how I have tried to explain my position many times, and someone always finds something to that is not clear. And I don't know. This is like a problem of like telephone, of just interpretation. And I think the best that we can do is just keep having the conversation so people can clarify and figure out what people's position is. But like, yeah, I'd appeal to everyone to apply the principle of charity as best as possible, because I feel like some people have been uncharitable to some of the things that has been said. And yeah, what you just said, I'll have to actually go through it and figure out what my position is. I don't know. I don't have a strong position either way right now. Like I don't have that many. I don't have a nuanced thought, unfortunately. So, but did you want
Uh,
to go through the rest of the?
yes. Okay. So that all life, both human and animal. I mean, maybe it should be human and non-human animal, just because humans are animals. But I mean, that's like just nitpicking. Are the products of unintelligent design. Yeah, I would agree with that. At the cost of immense, unacceptable, and unnecessary suffering. Yeah, I would agree with that. While humanity should indeed stop procreating and go extinct, I mean, we should stop procreating. I don't care if we go extinct or not. You know, reference what I just said
Yeah,
about a minute ago. It also has a responsibility as the only species with any hope of doing so to prevent the further suffering of the rest of sentient life. Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, I don't know about the exact wording, but the general message of like we should have great concern for other sentient beings who, for out of no fault of their own, cannot really, alleviate their situation themselves, I think we should have great concern for them. And again, reference the things that I was saying earlier. And then by any means, by finding means of breaking their cycle of sentience first before we are gone. On that point, I mean, it's a bit vague and ambiguous.
Yep.
Because a load of things can fit into that, but
Yep.
I would agree with it, if it's strictly sort of like non-violent, if it was something like, if we got to the point where we had the knowledge and technology to be able to do this, and when I say this, it's what I'm going to say in a minute, and we understood what the ramifications were going to be, and it was going to be only positive, then I would see no issue with, introducing some sort of contraception into populations of wild animals, so that they're not bringing new, individuals into existence. If we knew that was not going to have some sort of like negative impact, and we were able to negotiate that in some way. But again, because I'm not some sort of ecologist or whatever, maybe we'll never get to that point where we can do that on some sort of large scale or anything like that. But yeah, if it just means breaking their cycle of sentience by a means of sort of helping sort of implement non-reproduction in like a non-violent way, in a way that's not going to harm the individuals in nature, then I would agree. But again, it's very like ambiguous. A lot of things could fit into there, including like killing wild animals to stop them then going on to procreate.
Yeah.
Which obviously I wouldn't agree with, but it's so vague, that last bit. I don't know if it actually means that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you offered where you agree and where you disagree. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on the matter? Well, in my conversation with Antinatalism Outreach, he asked me, actually some other people asked me about my opinions on working with EFILists. I'd like to ask you the same question. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's perfectly fine to, well, I mean, like, it depends what you're working on. Like, if you're working on something, that is going to be violent in some way, or cause the suffering of like other individuals, then I should think you should not work on that. I mean, whether they're EFIList or not, like, people should not be working on stuff like that. But if you're working on something that does not concern the actual, again, it depends on, when you say like working with EFILists, it really depends on what they believe, because again, it's so vague and ambiguous. I don't actually know if anything that someone who calls themselves an EFIList would believe would be in any way problematic. It may be a complete, it may be something that I would completely agree with. I just don't know, because I get so many conflicting messages from different people.
Yeah.
And I mean, this definition we've just read out, has loads of room for it to be completely acceptable and fine, and a very, compassionately based philosophy. But it also leaves room for it to be like problematic. So it really depends on the individuals that you'd be working with. But generally, no, I don't think it's an issue at all.
Well,
Because
the people that you work with are extinctionists. So like, is that a problem?
well,
That you're not?
This was the point I was going to bring up, is I don't think it's an issue if you're not working on things that don't concern those things. Like, if you're, like, I know I'm not in this situation, but I'm just using it as like a very like easy example. Like, if you're going to an animal sanctuary and you're going to volunteer there, to help, maintain the standard of living for the animals there or whatever, like, who gives a fuck if the person you're going to volunteer with is an ethilist or not, or what their views are on that. Like, it doesn't really concern the work that you're doing. And yeah, I would just say that's a general rule of thumb. And I would say that, I mean, you brought up the others in Annie. Like, I would say that applies in Annie. Like, we're not doing anything that would concern any like anything, at least that I'm aware of, that I would see as unethical. So I don't think it really matters that much. But I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you say you're not doing something unethical, like, you mean the organization or EFILism itself? Because I'd say that working.
No,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I meant the organization itself. You know,
Okay.
you can do something ethical in partnership with someone who believes something you think is unethical. Like, I do things that are ethical all the time with people I think hold unethical beliefs. Like, the world, you know, we are all surrounded in a world by people who constantly abuse or pay for animals to be abused.
Yeah.
But, you know, I still work with them to
I work with farmers and hunters and people that
yeah,
fish,
exactly. You know,
and so,
you still, you work with them to do
and not
something.
just do it, but we'll say like, yeah, we should be doing more hunting. So it's like, yes, I do work with people like that. So like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say, you know, that should not stop you from working with people just because they may hold views that you view as unethical. Again, there's some nuance there. If they're actually going out and doing unethical, um, I mean, there's even more nuance, because people who do abuse animals are going out and doing unethical things. But, you know, again, it's maybe a case of like, they know not what they do. But if someone is going out and intentionally doing something unethical that, you know, they know is unethical, or at least they know that it's causing a lot of suffering, and they know that in a very real way, that, you know, then it would get to the point where you wouldn't work with them. But if someone just holds some belief that you think is unethical, it's not necessarily a reason not to work with them. It may be a thing where you've just got to judge it on a case by case basis, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would just say, like, I do loads of work with different people who hold views that I think are despicable. But, you know, that's the world we live in. Loads of people hold views that you don't agree with, and you've got to negotiate that when you're here.
Yeah.
But can I just add as a caveat to that?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily, I'm not saying that's any of the people I'm working with in Annie. Um, like, I mean, I haven't gone into like the nuances of everyone's philosophical beliefs with each of the other founders. So, like, I can't sit here and reel off what everyone else thinks. But I just wanted to add that caveat. Like, I'm not saying that any of the other Annie founders are, you know, doing or holding any views that are unethical. But yeah, I mean, I haven't explored every single issue with every one of them.
Yeah. Do you plan to?
Well, I mean, mostly when we have our meetings, it's mostly just discussing the work that we're doing. But like, you know, occasionally, like at the end of the meetings or like in the general hangouts, we'll discuss general philosophical issues. I haven't made any plans to like do deep dives into any particular subjects with any of them. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't planned to, but
Okay.
you know, I'm sure over time, as you know, spend time with other people, you learn more and more, obviously.
Well, there's a little bit of an issue of resource allocation. Like, how much time, how much do you want to deep dive into a topic that, uh, for me, if there's like 3 or 4 things that I disagree with it, I could be like, hey, I disagree with this thing. And for me, I want to focus on the philosophy that I enjoy and learning about, and that would be antinatalism. So, but at the same time, if I am talking to people of different beliefs, absolutely, I want to give them a fair like space to voice their beliefs, and also to yeah, try to interpret it in a good faith manner and apply the principle of charity so that I can honestly critique whatever they're saying. And with this particular subject matter, it seems, at least with my personal experience, people have different interpretations of some of the things that are going on in that school of thought. So yeah, I don't understand why there's so much differences. But maybe this is just a problem of, again, like telephone issue, where there's also a lot of interpretation in antinatalism, but maybe that's unfair to say. Like maybe those are two separate issues. I'm actually unsure about that. Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts or comments that you wanted to make about it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions for you. Yeah, you gave me your, we covered the definition, we clarified if you are or not. And yeah, I feel like we've covered that. So thanks. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say one maybe final thing that I'll say is that like I don't really care for labels that much. So like if someone is going to come and be like, oh no, this is exactly what it is, so now you know you've got to take the label because you do actually agree with it, like I don't care about it that much. Like fuck the label, like it doesn't really matter, it's the beliefs that matter. But you know, it may turn out that, you know, the community has this massive discussion, we finally come to some agreement in some, you know, like we define and lay out exactly what EFILism means, and it may, you know, transpire that, you know, my beliefs do fall into what it is, but at the moment it just seems so ambiguous that I don't know. I'm not against, you know, the philosophy per se, because I don't really know what the philosophy is at the moment, because it just, I'm getting so many mixed messages. If it does, you know, once the waters have cleared, if it ends up being something that that I agree with, then I'm like perfectly fine with that. I just don't know at this stage. But also having said that, like I'm not in some sort of like hurry or whatever to either adopt or not the label. Like I really don't care about the label, and like I said, I don't think it's the most beautiful of words either. So.
Well, I mean, one of the common themes is being an extinctionist, and
yeah, so if, oh sorry,
so I feel like that's a clear thing that you are not and I am not, and that we
yeah,
would, yeah.
okay. Yeah, okay. Actually, no, I agree with you there, because it does explicitly say. Wait, does it explicitly say? It does, doesn't it? I've just lost where. Yeah. While humanity should indeed stop procreating and go extinct, so it should go extinct. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. No, I agree then. Okay, so with the definition that's there, yeah, I would not fall into that. So yeah, I wouldn't be.
The only caveat is that volunteer, like if hypothetically, if we all voluntarily, you know, stop procreating, then, you know, by logical consequence, we'd go extinct. But
that's not necessarily being pro-extinction. That's just not caring.
Okay. I feel like someone's gonna like be pedantic on this, but the point is, the point is, we're not trying to intervene to bring about extinction. We're trying to say we're against the, we're advocating that people don't, that it's unethical to procreate. That's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Like to me, extinction is not the end goal. I mean, maybe a couple of months ago when I hadn't thought about it as much and my views weren't as nuanced, I might have said, you know, yeah, we should go extinct, or extinction is the end goal, or something like that. But the way I think at the moment, I don't think extinction. Oh, sorry, I've just got a call.
Okay. Yeah, take it, and I'll pause this.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, and we're back. You had a phone call, and we were just wrapping up. Do you want to finish off your final thought?
Yeah, the final thing I was just going to say was basically I just wanted to echo what you had said a couple of seconds before, which is that, like, at least, well, like, we seem to both be not advocating for extinction, but just advocating against procreation. And there's a key difference there, because one is actively trying to work towards extinction, and the other one, extinction, is at least in the world we live in at the moment, is just sort of like a natural consequence of the more specific thing that we're aiming for, which is trying to get people to stop creating new life. And previously, when my views were less nuanced, and I'd like had less conversations and stuff like that, I can't remember any specific time I did say it, but I definitely probably would have said it at some point that I was pro-extinction. But yeah, as my understanding has changed, I would say I'm no longer that. I'm just anti-procreation. I don't really care in and of itself whether extinction happens or not. Yeah, and that was basically the only thing I was gonna say.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts or comments before we wrap up?
No, I think that's everything.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on the channel. Yeah, I didn't know this conversation would go on for so long, because I just wanted to ask you just that one thing. But I'm glad that we hashed out, some of the nuances and complexities in this. So I'm sure there's going to be future conversations to be had. Yeah, thanks again for coming on the channel and talking about your views. Take care, Lawrence. All right, take care,
Yeah,
man.
no, thanks, Mark.
Cheers.